Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into one of the most remarkable and consequential shifts in modern warfare, how Ukraine has managed to strike deep into Crimea, exposing it as Russia's most vulnerable weak spot. What was once considered Moscow's untouchable stronghold has now turned into a battlefield of precision strikes, intelligence breakthroughs, and strategic brilliance that's changing the course of the entire war. When Russia illegally annexed Crimea in 2014, it became a symbol of Putin's power. It wasn't just about territory, it was about pride, control, and a statement to the world that Russia was back on the global stage. Moscow poured billions into militarizing the peninsula, transforming it into one of the most fortified regions in Europe. Russian jets, warships, missile systems, and troops flooded the area. The Kremlin believed that Crimea would be the safest place in any future war, far from the reach of Ukrainian missiles or NATO intervention. But that illusion is now collapsing. Fast forward to today, and Ukraine has turned Crimea into a nightmare for Russian forces. The turning point came when Kiev began using long-range precision weapons, advanced drones, and top-tier intelligence to strike deep behind Russian lines. From airbases to fuel depots, radar stations, and key bridges, Ukraine has methodically targeted the heart of Russia's military logistics in Crimea. Each explosion, each strike, is not just a military victory, it's a psychological blow to the Kremlin and a symbol of Ukraine's resilience. Ukraine's strategy is clear: isolate Crimea, choke off its supply routes, and make it impossible for Russia to sustain its occupation. The most iconic example of this is the repeated attacks on the Kerch Bridge, the lifeline connecting Russia to Crimea. This bridge isn't just a piece of infrastructure, it's a symbol of Putin's control over the peninsula. Every time it's hit, it sends shockwaves through Moscow, undermining both military operations and political confidence. What's truly remarkable is how Ukraine has managed to achieve all of this despite not having the same resources or firepower as Russia. They've relied on creativity, innovation, and a mastery of modern asymmetric warfare. Western supplied weapons like Storm Shadow and Scalp missiles have played a critical role, allowing Ukraine to hit high-value targets with pinpoint accuracy. But it's not just about the weapons, it's about the intelligence network behind them. Ukraine's ability to gather real-time data, track movements, and coordinate strikes has been revolutionary. These attacks have also forced Russia to stretch its defenses thin. Crimea, once a fortress, is now surrounded by constant threat. Russian air defense systems that were once focused on protecting the front lines are now being pulled back to shield Crimea. This, in turn, weakens Russian forces elsewhere and gives Ukraine more freedom to operate along other parts of the battlefield. This strategic ripple effect is massive. Another key factor in Ukraine's success has been the use of advanced drones and electronic warfare. The Ukrainian military has developed and deployed a wide range of drones, from small kamikaze models to long-range reconnaissance units that can strike deep into Russian positions. These drones have proven to be both cost-effective and devastatingly efficient. They're used not only for direct attacks, but also for identifying targets and overwhelming Russian radar systems. In many cases, Ukraine's drones have forced Russia to relocate or even abandon key military installations. One of the most striking changes in this war has been the shift in perception. For years, Crimea was seen as a fortress of Russian control, untouchable, and beyond Ukraine's reach. Now, it's become one of the most dangerous places for Russian soldiers to be stationed. Every day brings new reports of explosions, sabotage, and attacks on infrastructure. The once heavily guarded airfields of Saki, Belbek, and Sevastopol have all been hit. These are not random attacks, they are precise, calculated operations designed to dismantle Russia's ability to wage war from Crimea. Behind these strikes lies an even deeper strategy: psychological warfare. Ukraine isn't just hitting military targets, it's striking at Russia's confidence. The message is clear: nowhere is safe. This creates fear and uncertainty among Russian troops and civilians living in Crimea. Reports suggest that thousands of Russians have started leaving the peninsula, fearing that Ukraine might soon launch a larger offensive. Even Russian propaganda channels are struggling to hide the damage, which further erodes public trust in the Kremlin's narrative of control. Internationally, Ukraine's operations in Crimea have also reshaped the conversation about the war. Western nations that once hesitated to provide long-range weapons are now realizing their strategic impact. The more Ukraine demonstrates success, the more confident its allies become in providing advanced systems. What began as defensive aid has now evolved into an offensive capability that's shifting the entire balance of power. Another important layer to this story is Crimea's geography. It's surrounded by water and connected to Russia through a narrow bridge, which makes logistics extremely difficult. Every strike on fuel depots or supply lines forces Russia to find alternate, slower routes, increasing the cost of maintaining its military there. Ukraine has effectively turned geography into a weapon. By cutting off supply chains, they're not just reducing Russia's ability to fight, they're slowly strangling its presence on the peninsula. But the real masterstroke lies in how Ukraine combines military precision with timing. Each attack seems to come when Russia least expects it, often after periods of calm. This unpredictability keeps Russian commanders on edge and prevents them from establishing stable defensive routines. Whether it's nighttime drone swarms, missile strikes on naval facilities, or sabotage operations by special forces, Ukraine keeps changing the tempo of the fight. Let's also not forget the symbolic importance of Crimea to Putin himself. It's not just another region, it's his political trophy. The annexation of Crimea in 2014 was the cornerstone of his image as a strong leader. He used it to fuel nationalism, justify aggression, and rally domestic support. But now, as Ukraine pounds targets across the peninsula, that image is crumbling. Every explosion in Sevastopol is a reminder to the Russian people that Putin's war is failing to deliver security or victory. The economic cost to Russia is also staggering. Maintaining military control over Crimea requires enormous financial resources, from rebuilding damaged bases to protecting supply lines. Each Ukrainian strike not only destroys equipment, but forces Russia to divert funds and manpower from other critical areas. Over time, this financial bleeding becomes unsustainable. Russia's defense industry is already under immense strain due to sanctions and battlefield losses. Adding Crimea's vulnerabilities to that mix creates a long-term strategic disaster. Ukraine's resilience is equally inspiring. Despite the hardships, the blackouts, and the constant bombardments, the country's resolve hasn't wavered. The campaign against Crimea symbolizes Ukraine's refusal to accept occupation as permanent. For many Ukrainians, these strikes represent just a step toward reclaiming what's rightfully theirs. Each successful operation is not just about territory, but about national dignity and survival. What's unfolding now in Crimea is more than just a military campaign. It's a glimpse into the future of warfare where technology, intelligence, and adaptability can overcome sheer size and firepower. Russia's outdated command structures and reliance on brute force are no match for Ukraine's agility and precision. The lessons being learned here will shape military doctrines for decades to come. Looking ahead, Crimea's fate could very well determine the outcome of this war. If Ukraine continues to tighten its grip and make the peninsula untenable for Russian forces, it will strike at the heart of Moscow's strategic position in the Black Sea. Control over Crimea means control over vital sea routes, ports, and regional influence. Losing it would be a devastating political and military blow for Putin, one that could redefine Russia's global standing. The world is watching closely as Ukraine continues to press forward. Each new strike sends a powerful message that even against overwhelming odds, determination and innovation can rewrite history. What was once Russia's proudest conquest is now its most painful liability. The transformation of Crimea from fortress to weak spot marks one of the most significant shifts in the war so far. In the end, Ukraine's campaign in Crimea is not just about reclaiming land, it's about proving that tyranny can be challenged, that empires can fall, and that courage backed by strategy can turn the tide of war. Russia's overconfidence turned Crimea into a trap of its own making, and Ukraine has learned how to exploit every weakness. As the strikes continue, one thing becomes increasingly clear: Crimea is no longer Russia's symbol of dominance. It's a ticking time bomb at the center of Putin's failing empire. Thank you for watching till the end. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the biggest geopolitical stories shaping our world today.